Let's see. Are we actually live? It says we're picking up audio. My green light is on. That's not what I wanted to show off, nor is that. So of course I clicked the bigger button. Boom. There we go. Things are looking good. Sign into the chat in case someone shows up. That's... Why is it over there? Don't put it over there. Stop putting things over there. That's not what we wanted at all. Let's put the YouTube chat up here. Let's put my link in Dolly's Discord. Share. Copy. Let's paste that up. Okay. How do I tell if I'm talking without reverbing the mic super hard? Obsidian says we're talking. Should I trust it? It's a picture of me, hi, me, video, screens reporting. Doesn't sound like my music is recording. Hopefully we're here. Hopefully we're here. Okay. Today, Dali from Mystic Arts released a really good video about D&D reviews and the overall lack thereof of them, and how he would like to know what he's doing right, what he's doing well. You know, I have a lot of experience with third-party products and Patreon subscriptions and Kickstarters and 5th edition modules in general, and I think that the Mystic Arts team is one of the best in the business, if not, you know, potentially the best in the business, quite frankly, in my opinions. They're right up there with people like Sly Flourish, MCDM, the Dungeon Dudes. I mean, I don't even think WotC touches these guys, and they're like a 5-man crew from Iceland, working for 7 jars of mustard, and I think that they're great. So I wanted to today get into a review of The Ruins of Brass, a randomly generated Megadungeon from issue number 4 of the Mystic Arts digital zine, The Broadsheet. For those of you who don't know, the Mystic Arts is a YouTube channel and a Patreon run by Dadi and his girlfriend Abby that focuses on 5th edition Dungeons and Dragons and incorporates structures that we find in the OSR, in video games, in television and video game, or television and movies. Just different ways to add things like pacing and story structure and procedural tools like dungeon turns and hex crawling into our 5th edition games in a way that gives DMs and players the tools they need to tell stories that are somewhat lacking from the core 5th edition chassis. And I really love the way that they present their material and their ideas and their philosophy. The broadsheets in particular are one of my favorite products that they release. There are currently 6 of them. They're on a bit of a hiatus for the summer, but they're supposed to be back this fall, hitting, well, once again, like a monthly cycle of this magazine. The broadsheets detail Dadi's home setting of Octroxia, which is a flintlock fantasy by Gaslight, a nation that uses Industrial Revolution technologies to kind of discuss modern issues through a lens of D&D fantasy. Each one has an adventure, a detailed description of one of the boroughs of Blackguard, the kind of Victorian London, kind of Sherlock Holmes, Robert Downey Jr. movie inspired ideal of London during the Victorian era. It's got fun stuff. It's got an adventure, a detailed description of one of the boroughs, or in the case of this issue, there's 2 or 3 of the boroughs, I believe. I think it's the Warehouse District and the Smoke Avenue. And then the third section of each guide has either some sort of lore, some character options, or in the case of this one, the Mystic Arts team's dungeoneering rules, which are vital to running the Ruins of Brass that is presented here as the core adventure. I have run 6 sessions of this Megadungeon, and I'm about 2/3 of the way done. Overall, it is like 6 5-room dungeon kind of situations. and a boss fight at the end. But due to circumstances with my party, we've added a couple of sessions in there based on how things played out. If you're interested in my actual playthrough, I could do more videos detailing that from my notes, but this is more of a product overview and a review of someone who is 2/3 of the way done with running this module. We have 4 of the 6 keystones, which means we've done 4 of the 6 chambers, and then there's a boss chamber after that. The ruins are presented as a randomly generated Megadungeon. It's split into essentially 4 tables. Let me kind of show that if I can. So there's a table. Can it be seen on my screen? Let me see. Yeah, so not well. Let me zoom in a little more and kind of stretch over here. All right. So the first is this chambers table here. Then there are the setbacks, which is a double page spread, and then there are the climaxes, which has a table right here that you can split through. And it's a really interesting design. I really like it. It begins with some setting lore about the Last War, which is a historical global conflict in the greater backdrop of Atraxia's setting and Dadi's greater world of Orathon. It involves this character, this big bad evil character, the Invincible Emperor, who waged a war across the material plane and other planes with allies like the people of Brass, the Azer of the Fire Plane, as this floating city that besieged Blackguard during the war and was smashed, as you can see in this kind of image here, this black and white image, was smashed from the skies and crashed into Smoke Avenue, which is some really interesting lore, in my opinion. And so the outset of this adventure, it's been 20 years since this war, and explorers have awoken something in the ruins, using these random charts to determine which chamber the party comes across, each with its own random puzzle to resolve. You roll various side room encounters and what happens in each of those little side chambers, like this one here. So like you would roll to see what happens in the storage room and what happens in the manual override and what happens in the pipes and the bellows and in the various side rooms over here. You'll see. So you'll roll on a location table, and then it also uses the dungeon turn rules in the Dungeoneering guide. And so you'll roll at the end of every 10-minute stretch, they're called. You'll roll to see if a random encounter happens on the, I believe it's called the setbacks table, the events table. So yeah, there's you have a chamber, you have setbacks, which are different locations and different events. The locations are when they go into certain rooms and areas. The events are every 10 minutes that they take, fulfilling the objectives of the puzzle and exploring the room. And then you'll end each encounter with a climax, which is kind of detailed here. There's 2 different versions of a climax. There are ambushes and discoveries. Ambushes are the players finish the puzzle in the room, the exit door opens up, and a bad guy walks through and attacks them. And then the discoveries are the party finds another room with a bad guy in the midst of doing bad guy evil plans. Like one of them that I've run is this really cool Azer room here with a fire giant trying to flood the hub city above with molten brass, which I thought was really fun. We just ran that one, I think 2 weeks ago. That was really good. Now, I wanted to point out that I think that this method of like rolling the chamber that they go into, rolling which locations on the setbacks chart, which random events that they get, I think that that's fun, and I think that's really good for like convention play, or if like you and your friends have like a weekend to yourselves where you're just playing D&D for hours and hours and hours on end. I think that's going to be really good for that sort of style of gameplay. But I personally wanted a more curated, narrative-driven adventure out of this, which it's also completely capable of doing. It just takes a little bit of more work. Like, I curated which rooms I wanted. I curated which random encounters. I made like a chart for each adventure of which random encounters made sense and tried not to double up on those. I picked the chamber and the boss that would go along with it. I tried to foreshadow the boss in the opening act of the adventure, and then fight them in the climax. But that was my own, just like me and my players. I know that they were going to want that sort of style of play over the kind of random elements of this. I think you could take, just issue 4 of the broadsheet with you on your iPad or your Kindle and just run this for random people at your friendly local gaming store on a day where your DM is sick and doesn't have anything to run, but you all still want to play D&D. You could just roll up, boom, boom, boom. It's very table usable. Like, if you look, just the Mystic Art style in general, they're very focused on the idea of this 2-page spread. Like, they give you the whole map, every single room, all on one page, like ready to go. This is all the information you need to run this, other than it says when they go into this room, roll on the locations chart. When they take a 10-minute dungeon turn, roll on the events chart. Once they've solved the puzzle, roll on the climax chart. So you're really just flipping between, the chamber you're on, the setbacks table, and the climaxes. Take a second to see if someone in YouTube is on and yelling at me that I can't be heard and I'm talking into the ether real quick. Make sure that's not what's happening. Okay. No one's yelling at me, at least, so that's a good sign. Hopefully I'm being heard. No dog dilemmas today so far. But yeah, so as I mentioned in my previous Fungal Queen review, I had talked to the lead designer of Mystic Arts, Magnus, and he had given me some feedback on the kind of information the team is looking for here, with any reviews that you do. Reading the adventure, what makes you want to run it? What makes you hesitant? Do you feel any parts are lacking in clarity in terms of design, making it difficult to visualize running it, or alternatively, are there things that are too rigid in design, making it difficult to go your own way with it? And so, unlike the Fungal Queen, which I haven't run just yet, I've only done like a pre-campaign reading. I am 2/3 the way through this particular adventure, and I have a little bit better insight into some of the table issues that I found. Mind you, I am running a very modified version of the campaign, a very curated version, where I was looking to have a story that the design principles didn't really account for. So I want you to just take my criticism with a little grain of salt here, as I kind of get into that information for Magnus here. Yeah, so what made me want to run this? First of all, I love the niche setting, the idea that in this niche setting of Blackguard, this flintlock fantasy by gaslight, this industrial revolution with, Model T Fords and, their version of like General Motors and JP Morgan and all those robber baron type guys, and the idea that, London, there was so much smoke in London during the Industrial Revolution that it changed the wing colors of butterflies, things like that. Like those kind of ideas are prevalent in Blackguard, but also it's D&D at its core. And I think that that's a really fun thing to be able to say, hey, look, you're in this very modern idea city, but over here is a weird fantasy city full of genies and fire dwarves and devils and demons. Why don't you go in here and steal a bunch of magic cocaine and items and forge some crazy otherworldly metals? I think that's a lot of fun, and that's kind of the premise of this adventure, is that there's this like secondary market of like arcane goods. Like there's this cute little rat guy who sells you magic fire rings, and there's adventurers in armor with guns. There are these two weird cultists who want to smelt this crazy ore. There's people hawking their wares. It's this kind of shanty pop-up town inside this chamber in the ruins of Brass. I think that's really cool. I also think, rather than just scroll through the entire adventure for you, show you some of the art here. Look at these goblins. Gangster goblins. Let's see. The ruins. And then like this crazy evil fox demon thing. And this fire giant with a Gatling gun, like a magic arcane Gatling gun. Brimrun, their lead artist, just knocked the art out of the park with this one. There's all these really cool bosses you can fight. There's this Irene's devil who has like a dancing sword. There's a fire giant and his Azer who are trying to flood the place with brass that I just did. There's Mick Morsel, the goblin gangster. There's the incandescent one, this sick red dragon who's covered. He's been sniffing all the magical cocaine residue. It's called like silver, iridium, and golden residues or something like that. And he's like bathed himself in all this residue, and it gives him like chromatic spray instead of like a flame breath. All these really cool bosses. The triumvirate of fire. These three salamanders summoning elementals into the dungeon, and then Bony White Hands, this cool wraith bad guy, and then the bosses. Look at these bosses. Look at them. Just so cool. So that, to me, is a reason to run it. And I like the lore around the Siege of Blackguard, the Invincible Emperor, his allies in the City of Brass. I like the Emixium ingots, these rare, this crazy metal found by the worshippers of the cult of evil fire. As far as things that made me hesitate, I will say that the random generation method that I mentioned before, I think it's a really cool idea, but for my games, they're hosted at my friend's house an hour away. So if I forget a mini or I don't have the right map, which I have been switching to like drawing on a map for this, but like I print up the stats of the monsters I need. I print up my random encounter tables. I print up my secrets and clues. I print up the bosses. I print up the maps. And just being able to having to run the whole adventure at any given moment, not really for me in this particular instance. It might be something that I do, like I said, if I were to rent a cabin and play for like a weekend in a nice little town like Tahoe or somewhere. My players really liked that idea. It's definitely something that you could just like marathon D&D, just roll this out, or just random game night, no one's around, but you're the host, so you have all your minis at home. I think it would be good for that. I don't know that it's great for, hey guys, this is going to be our main campaign for 3 months. Have fun, right? That was a hesitant point for me, but I don't want to really label that like as a criticism, because I really liked what the team was trying to do with this adventure, and it's not a knock. It's just it wasn't for me. Another thing I wanted to say is, as far as clarity, I have run into some small issues with just, and this is true of a lot of Mystic Arts content for me. They do such a good job digesting the whole dungeon and encounter in as few pages as they can, and I know that this is a design principle of theirs, but sometimes it does make things difficult. I'll bring up this was a recent one. This chamber here, let me see if I can, so my players come into this room. I have no idea. You're supposed to see a fire giant and like 4 or 6 Azer guys. And this A, B, and C valves all need to be opened. Like if they get opened during the course of the fight, the players lose. all of their allies in the hub city get melted in a molten flood of bronze, and then they've got to go out and fight a bunch of Azer to re-clear the area. Ringo the Ringmonger dies. It's awful, right? Like, this is a high-stakes encounter. So I need to know, where is the boss standing? Is he right? This is where I put him. And I had 2 of his guys here, and 2 of his guys at the foot of the stairs, and 2 of his guys up here, I think. I think there's 6. There might have been only 4. I don't remember exactly. But it was just like, oh, where, like, just knowing whether or not they could see through this little gap right here. Like, can they, is this a catwalk? They can look down and see the fire giant and shoot spells at him? That's how I ultimately ended up rolling it. And then it says that this is stairs down, and I thought these were stairs down at first. But no, I think it means that this whole area here is like a spiraling staircase down to a bottom layer. And I wasn't sure about that, and but the fight was great. My players destroyed one of the valves, and so I ruled that the fire giant, the Azer had to dive in here and go into the like actual funnels that the brass goes through to go open, like physically open that gate, which they were able to stop the Azer from doing. I made rules on the fly. I'm an experienced DM. You can do that too, but you know, if they want feedback, this is not a particularly clear map. I would love to have known where the bad guys are, what sight lines happened here. You know, if they can't see into this room, they can open B and C valves, no problem. And if there's a guy starting here at A, the party could lose on turn 1. So I really needed to know, where's everyone standing? How far are they from the valves? Another one that I ran into some issues with that was a chamber was this one here. And so it took a few reads to understand. So what's going on here is that this bottom room is flooded and they can't get through the exit. And so over here, there's this breach in the wall. This all makes sense, right? Like, you can, this is clearly labeled. Like, this isn't where I had any problems. But like this specific room, there's this little lever right here. And this lever like makes the door close and flood with water in 10 minutes, which I guess is actually supposed to be like a trap and just kills anyone unless they can somehow teleport through, which would be cool if they could teleport through. Or my players talked about they had a skeleton familiar that could have done it, but we weren't sure. Can they see? Is there a window in this? Because it's supposed to be like the foreman's office. Is there a window here that they can see into the other room and just teleport? Is there a window in the door that rolls out right here? Is there a window they could see through and teleport? Is this just meant to be a haha, you're dead? Which is fine. It's that kind of dungeon where there are haha gotcha moments. And that's cool. Like, I like that. But it just wasn't clear what was happening here. And then these rooms, I think they're supposed to be lower. These little side rooms, I think they're supposed to be underneath these drains somehow. But that wasn't entirely clear. I didn't really rule it that way. I'm not sure where that was. But these are just, like I said, these are nitpicks that maybe I misread some of the wording. But that is kind of a situation where there wasn't enough text on this single spread to really know those details. And I've run into this problem a couple of times with different Mystic Arts things, and so I don't want to say like, oh, this is a huge problem, because I don't think that it is. But it does come, like, their design principle of giving you as much as they can in as few pages and words, I think there's a lot of value to that. But occasionally, being a little more long-winded, being a little more clear is something that could work on as a team. I do want to point out that, like, I tried to run, what's that silly adventure Kobold Press put out? The Scarlet Citadel adventure. And, like, this same room would be, like, 7 pages of useless nonsense in the Scarlet Citadel. So I don't want to be like, oh, they didn't put enough on here to run it. That's not the case. Shadow Dark uses very, very short, brief descriptions of room like this too. If you are comfortable just making a ruling and making a decision, this is fine. This is all you really need. So it's not necessarily that I disagree with their design philosophy. It's just sometimes as a DM, I would like a little more clarity, and I think that's gonna be to taste. The other problem that I do have, he asked, is there anything that is too rigid that you feel like you can't create your own adventures in this. And I would say to that, it's not that it's too rigid, it's that it's too brief in a place that I personally think it shouldn't have been. These climaxes, these titular villains like Mick Morsel here, Eridanaf the Incandescent Dread, Bony White Hands. I love every single one of these fights. They're really cool. The bosses are evocative. I have no setup for them at all. I don't know the name of Mick's gang. I don't know what he steals. I don't know what he does. I don't know what his reputation is. I don't have anything to go on with that. And that's a real shame to me. We've got this this Irenes Dire, I think her name is, Dire. I may be saying that wrong. I don't speak Latin. Where's she at? Yeah, Dire the Irenes. She's an agent of the Seven. She says, you shall perish and give all your valuables to my master. Who's her master? Who's she work for? I have to assume it's a devil, and maybe because they are a third party, they couldn't reference Asmodeus. You could have given him a title. You could have said the Lord of Hate, the Master of Secrets, the Counselor of Flame. You know, give us a cool title, you know. Anything like that. She just shouts this cool line, and then there's nothing my players can roll. An Arcana check, a History check, nothing. They have no idea who this lady is. Throughout the event, like in the early parts of the adventure, like if you pick this thing apart, which I have, there's some lore that you can find. But I would like just a little bit more context for some of this if I were to run this. Like I said, I'm running this as a full campaign, even though it's kind of meant to be like a serialized adventure. But I think it's a real missed opportunity of the module to not have any cool lore about these really unique bosses. They've even got, can I show it here? They've even got all these cool like little speech bubbles that they all have, which is awesome. Awesome introductory speech stuff. Then I don't have any way to set him up prior. To be fair, a couple of them are in the events list. A couple of them do show up as random encounters, but that's a random encounter. You may never roll it. You know what I mean? So that's a small criticism that I have, and I don't think it's a sticking point either. It's just something that I wish in future products the team just gave us just a couple more sentences of lore. You know, just a few more. You know, you have these super awesome, interesting characters, and there's just so little to go on about them. The Horizon Smiths, the two nerd cultists who craft magic ingots for the players and turn them into items and armor. I had to go into the Arcane Forge, a separate PDF document, to find out anything about what that is. And so I would just like, I understand they're also trying to make a product that anyone can just strip for content and put into their own games. I think they recognize that Atraxia is a bit of a niche setting in its flintlock fantasy. People really don't like guns. People really don't like trains and cars in their D&D. And so I think this is just a design philosophy that the team has that I sometimes grate with, and that's fine, you know. I personally love their setting, and so I want more of their setting in their setting books, if that makes sense. But as far as that, overall, none of these issues are insurmountable. The Mystic Arts design philosophy for their dungeons is really good. I think they've achieved what they meant to achieve with this adventure, which was a modular dungeon that could be run straight from the page in a couple of nights. I think that they've achieved that goal. If I'm assuming correctly what their goal was. It's an awesome dungeon. My players are having a blast trying to figure out all the different puzzle rooms. We have 2 more puzzle rooms and the final boss encounter, which does have a beautiful map. Let's see if I can show that map off. The Throne of Brass, it's called. This sick, beautifully rendered map and these epic bosses. I cannot wait to run these epic bosses. They're so cool. And I have a few more chambers to run, which I think are going to be really good. But yeah, I would like to thank the Mystic Arts team for their hard work on the broadsheets. Please check out their channel. Please check out their Patreon. If you're watching this, you almost certainly are either my mother or found it on the Mystic Arts Discord server, which means you've probably checked out the Patreon. But yeah, thank you for anyone who bothers to watch this. And please enjoy this content and keep studying the Mystic Arts.